How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Z Garage. I'm Josh, and we're back working on the engine again this week. Hopefully this week we're finishing it out. We don't have too much more to do. It is just, headers, a little bit of the spark plug wires. I got to figure out some of the vacuum tubing, but that's not really going to be an issue, at least probably not for this week, because we kind of got to get things in the car and start routing things around. But we're also probably going to go ahead and start painting some of the scuff marks that I have on the engine bay that I don't really like. And then, if possible, we're going to swap out the subframe with the NA subframe and then try to get the engine back in. That'd be really cool. I've got to do a few things before we can do that. I've got to install the flywheel again. If you remember, I have the Fidanza aluminum racing flywheel, excuse me. We got to replace the friction surface on there because it was looking a little rough. So I'm going to go, I got a replacement for that. We'll go ahead and put it in there. Get it back on the engine, and then I want to go ahead and mate up my transmission, because if you remember the CD09 transmission that I'm trying to swap on here, we used an automatic transmission from an automatic transmission bell housing from a Z32, and we need to go ahead and see how the starter is going to mount, because I am not switching over to the Z32 style flywheel, which is like a 96 Maxima or something like that. So fingers crossed we can go ahead and get the starter at least knowing what we need to do to mount that up, get it properly tuned in there, and fingers crossed we can get the engine back in. So that's all going to be this episode if we can. Obviously, I don't know if I have enough time, but we're just going to be jumping right into it. So I'm going to go ahead and start pulling that stuff off. We're going to paint it. I'm going to wrap it. I don't know how much of that process I'm going to show because I'm not really an expert in wrapping headers. I've done like one. So, as much of an expert as that makes me. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into that. I'll take you guys along the way, and let's see where we get. All right, guys, you can see we got the header painted up right there. It's looking pretty decent. I put, I think, like 2.5 coats on pretty much every surface because it was a little odd. And then you can see I took the valve covers off because I want to go ahead and get those cleaned up so we can paint them as well. This is the driver's side here. It's bright silver, and then the passenger side you can see is like a darkish brown bronze. That's pretty normal. I've seen a lot of people post about that on the Facebook groups, and I think the answer is always that it's just some sort of PCB system. I don't know, it routes it to that side or whatever, and it stains the passenger side head more. But yeah, so it's completely fine. I've got a little bit of dirt and gunk, on all these bolt heads. So I will probably go ahead and clean this out. If we clean this, especially with like a brake clean, something that kind of really gets rid of oil, we're going to want to make sure to go ahead and re-lube some of this before we put the engine covers back on. And that's mainly just because we don't want to run it dry once the engine starts again. Not like it'd be an issue. I don't expect there to be any issues with that. But, better safe than sorry. Best practices. So next thing that we're moving on to is taking these guys and cutting the little tabs off. I've already done it on these guys. I didn't take any video, but there used to be the little tabs for the spark plug wires right here, and then there was one on that one, right on that little bank. Ground them off. I used a Dremel. Worked pretty well. You really got to get like the center of the spot weld out. And then I kind of like cut lines in it with a little cutoff wheel, and then kind of started breaking pieces off, and then eventually ground it flat. That worked pretty well. It took a long time, I'll tell you, to get that off. It took longer to get the old gasket seal out of the back of this. It was so hard. It was like hard like a rock, and it would tear. And it took literally like half an hour to get just the seal off of this one and off of that one. Really time consuming. But yeah, so I started wire wheeling these down. They're originally painted either red or silver, I believe. I don't think there were any black Z31s, valve covers at least. So I wire wheeled this. You can see obviously there's still some stuff on here, but I don't care too much. We just want a rough surface and a clean surface. So we'll go ahead and hit this with a little bit of brake clean. I don't have wax and grease remover, so that's what I use is brake clean. And then I hit it with a, I don't know if I got it over here, one of these tack cloths. They just kind of help grab out any loose dirt and stuff. And they've always worked pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and finish these up. I cut this port off. This is the the driver's side, if you remember. So this is the one we're putting this directly into. We're going to need to go ahead and cut the baffle on the back side, if you remember that, to get clearance. But this one's looking pretty good. We will go ahead and make a new hole in that one because of last video, if you saw. We cannot fit it where the original piece is there. So it'll be capped off, and we'll go ahead and make a new hole close to it. So yeah, these are looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and clean these up. I'll probably go ahead and paint them before you see them next, just because there's really nothing else to show. But I will go ahead and show the inside of the baffle that I cut once I do get these painted. So you guys will be able to see where it's at and how it's shaped and everything. So, all right, just want to give you a quick update. Things are progressing a little bit slower than I had wished, but what can you do? So let's just jump back into this. All right, guys, I don't remember exactly where I left off because it's been like a day, and I've just done a bunch of stuff. So let's go ahead and jump into this engine bay. I don't know if you guys can tell, it is really shiny and really clean. Basically what I figured out is that a lot of the areas that were dirty and marked up could just be wet sanded away. It was just marks on the clear coat, which makes sense because it's just plastic. It's not like it's gouging into anything. So I wet sanded a lot of that away, and then any places that I need to go ahead and repaint, like if you remember, I think I showed this part right here where it had chipped all the way down to the metal. I went ahead and fixed that up, painted it with some color, and then I went and put a nice 2K clear coat over all of this, and that's really what's making it so glossy. It looks so much better than the 1K stuff I was using before. So if I were to redo painting my engine bay, I would redo it with the 2K clear, and I recommend to you guys using a 2K clear. It is an activated hardener, so you have to wear a respirator. It will, it's very bad for you if you don't. But it's just so much better. It is a harder finish and it just looks really, really good. So if you guys are going to do this, use a 2K. So I'm super happy with how this turned out. I don't exactly remember what the cure time is on this paint, but I don't think I'm going to go ahead and put anything into it too soon. So it should have plenty of time to cure up. Now I came over here. I don't think I showed you guys the wrinkle on this yet. See if I can pick this up. All right, so if you guys can see, there's a really, really nice wrinkle. It's been like a day and a half. So this is like almost through its full cure. It's like 48 hours before you put it back on the car. So these are looking really, really good. What I did is I sprayed any of these areas here, and then like on that valve, that little like piece right there, anywhere that I wasn't going to paint with wrinkle. So like this oil cap, I want a nice seal here, so I didn't put, I put some tape around here so it wouldn't get wrinkle on it. I sprayed it with the roll bar chassis paint that I've used on a couple other pieces, just because I don't want bare metal. This is steel, if you guys remember. So I went ahead and painted that piece right there. I painted around like the inside of this hole, and same with the inside of that hole. Not that those will be seeing a lot of moisture, but just in case. So this is all nice and sealed and protected now, which is really, really nice. So these are almost done. I'll probably go ahead and pull those apart here just a second and put them on the engine. But let's go ahead and jump over to the engine while we're speaking of it. I got the header wrapped. That was pretty... wrapping headers, if you've ever done it before, it's just not a fun job. It's pokey, and it's difficult to get the lengths right because you go ahead and measure it out, and then you go to actually wrap it and it's completely different and you're too short or whatever. So I did get this wrapped. I used titanium heat wrap. I think DEI, Design Engineering something or another, I guess. I think a roll of that's like 30 bucks on Amazon, so pretty good from a reputable company. So you can definitely pick that up. I did one wrap around each of these, like, I don't know if you'd call them primaries. And then you can see there's a tie around each one. And then I ended up doing the main piece here in 2 sections. I would have liked to do one, but I of course measured too short. And it's kind of hard wrapping around these flanges because you got to go through them. So this piece has like 3 or 4 right here coming through and out of it just to really get all of this completely covered. You can see right here I still have a little open spot just because I wasn't able to wrap this around multiple times. I don't really know how you do, how you cover that. So probably just like another wrap on either side, maybe. And then of course coming up here, finished right there. So overall, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. I don't think I'm not gonna say it's not a permanent thing on here because I might just go ahead and redo it. I do want to have some sort of heat wrap on here just because I have, these cables and everything passing by it, but it could be better, so we might redo that in the future. I did go ahead and get it bolted back onto the engine. That was actually kind of a pain, which is kind of why I don't want to do the heat wrap again. I do want to leave this header on here now because it is just it's an issue. So if you look, I don't know if you guys can see it as much. So this side of the flex pipe is scrunched, and this side of the flex pipe is elongated, and then it's the opposite over here and over here. That's because this flange is just at the wrong angle on this header.
So it's kind of like twisting it. I did get some new hardware for here. These are 20mm long bolts, and those will work fine. I probably ought to have some sort of washer, but I probably won't. But yeah, so getting this on here, you know, it goes most of the way pretty fine. And then the last like 5 or so millimeters between this and actually hitting up against the head, what you're doing is you're twisting and compressing this. So basically, I think this section right here is too long. It needed to be cut down just a tiny bit more. And you know, if I was a machine shop and I had a welder, maybe I would do it. But not my interest at the moment. So it is all together at least, and I have no reason to take it off from here. So I think we're going to be good. We're definitely going to go ahead and double check it and make sure we don't have any exhaust leaks once we get it running, just because I want to make sure that I don't cause any issues down over there where it was really hard getting on. But like I said, guys, it's looking really good. So I'm going to go ahead and put the valve covers on. That's going to let us go ahead and put the turbo back on here. We're going to finish up the routing of these lines, get them heat wrapped as well, because you know they're going back by all this flex pipe stuff. And then I think the engine is getting really, really close to dropping back in the Z. So there's a few things we obviously need to do before that, but I am really, really liking how this is coming along. So let's go ahead and jump to the future when I do stuff.
All right, guys, look at this engine. It is all back together, and it is looking so, so good. We got the valve covers back on. The wrinkle black looks so good. I'm super happy I went with this. Wrinkle red would also look good, but I am a fan of just like a little bit more low-key. I've got the oil catch can ports here, and they look really, really good. Those were super easy to install. Happy about that. And I got to the intake manifold on. It's not completely bolted down yet. I bought some bolts for this. But it turned out that these holes are bigger than the bolt heads were, so I need to get probably just some shorter studs, and then I'll do it similar to this where I have a stud and a nut. Or I could just, you know, use this length. There's no issue with using that length other than it just looks a little long. So this is looking really, really good. I've got my throttle body on here. Obviously it's not welded on yet. I just have the adapter plate that I made here, and then I have the throttle on it itself. So I think I told you guys this is the 92mm LS throttle body, and it's looking really good. So before I get this welded on, I do want to put the engine back in the car because I don't know how high the hood is going to clear, and if we're hitting our throttle body, we might have to turn this upside down or kind of do something a little weird with it. So we're going to have to be mindful of that. So that's going to wait until we get it back in the car to figure out exactly how it needs to be welded. But I went ahead and helicoiled this aluminum plate back here with all these thread holes, and then I have 2 more on each side here so that we can make a bracket for our cable. So that'll be really nice. It should be really, really cool. Guys, let me just show you. Let me take this off for you. I want to show you the size comparison of this throttle body compared to the original throttle body. All right, guys, I hope the camera can do this justice between the new throttle body and the old throttle body, but it is just so much larger. It looks really, really cool. We're going to be able to make some big power with this setup, so I'm really happy with that. It does clear this valve cover, which I was scared of, so that is good. We're going to go ahead and clean that manifold up just a little bit before we get it welded, but like I was saying, we got to get it in the car first, make sure it clears the hood. Other than that, the engine is really, really close to being done. I did want to go ahead and try rebuilding this power steering pump. I bought the kit for it, and it doesn't look too difficult. So fingers crossed we can go ahead, and I'll make a video on that, of course. It'll probably be its own dedicated video, just because I want people to be able to find that easily. But yeah, the engine is pretty much there, guys, and it looks so, so good. I'm really happy with how it came out. You know, I would paint the block and stuff like that if I really wanted to, if I had time, but that's not really, you know, on this on my mind at the moment. So this is kind of be its final form, and honestly, I'm really, really happy with it. So I realize there are a few things that we still need to go ahead and do before we can get the engine in here. One is we need to reroute this harness. So all of the original like zip tie push pin clips are broken on this. So I need to go ahead and either buy some or make some. I'm thinking of 3D printing some. We'll see how that goes. And then we need to go ahead and get some brake lines back in here. I think you could probably put the brake lines in without that in here, with the engine in, but I think it's just going to be easier to do right now. So we need to go ahead and do that as well. And then I'm going to get the brake booster in if I can, and the brake master cylinder. So there's a few things that are going to go ahead and gate us from getting the engine in. I still need to put the NA subframe over there. So I don't think we're going to be able to get the engine in this video, unfortunately. But we're going to go ahead and make some really good progress to tee up next week. So fingers crossed all of this goes really easily. I'm going to go ahead and work on this, and then I'll show you guys how it comes out. All right, guys, we've made some really, really good progress in this engine bay here. So I got the entire engine harness ran all the way around exactly where it should be. All the harnesses are going to where they need to be going. I got the ground cables in there and over there, looking really, really good. Started mounting some of this stuff. Quick side note, if you guys know what this type of bolt slash screw is, it's almost like a self-tapper, but it's clearly got a hex head on top. Nissan used a lot of these in the engine bay here. If you know what those are, please go ahead and drop a comment because I would love to get some more because they are just so rusty and gross on my car. You know, I have a few that look, you know, acceptable like that, but I would really, really like some brand new ones. So if you know what that style of screw is, please let me know. And but that's not stopping us, you know. I got everything else in here. Everything is looking really good. You can see I got the subframe in. So this is the naturally aspirated subframe, which shows both of these are pushed backwards. Both of these engine mount stands. On the turbo one, you can see one is forward and one is backwards. So that's how you can tell the difference. One thing that I didn't realize, I'm pretty sure this is a later, like an 87 through 89 subframe. And the reason I think that is because the screws that hold down the steering rack are M12, and the ones that I had on my turbo subframe are M10. So I think they went over to a larger bolt. I believe they're M12 by 1.25, which is also a very uncommon thread for M12. So I'm going to have to order some bolts for that, which means that the steering rack is just kind of sitting right there for now. I do have a polyurethane bushing on this side here. I'm working on 3D printing a replacement for that. But I need to find a high temp, high durability filament. So I'm experimenting with a few. So if I ever get that done, I will go ahead and obviously list them for sale on theZgarage.net. But for now, that is going to be fine. You know, it might feel a little weird. So that's pretty much good. I went ahead and got all the suspension kind of up here. I haven't done the front tension rods yet because if you guys remember, it was a couple months ago, you know, like close to a year ago, I was going ahead and putting the suspension back in, and I'm like, oh no, I started stripping them, the points where the front tension rods mount to the car, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I was just stripping the bolts. I wasn't actually stripping the subframe, like the threads in this piece right here. So I went to go ahead and helicoil them, and I realized that they were fine. So I went to go ahead and put in bolts, and of course I don't have M10 by 1.25, which is what those require. I just have, you know, that pile of old ones right there that I used just to get it here. But those are the ones that were stripping out when I was torquing it. So I need to go ahead and order up some new ones of those as well. So overall, it's coming along pretty good. I want to go ahead and get the brake master cylinder in before I finish up the brake lines. But I wanted to go ahead and wait before I could get when I got my brake booster and brake master cylinder. So I do have those. I decided to paint the brake master cylinder. It's going to be wrinkle black, just like the rest of the stuff. The wrinkle looks really weird before it really dries. Anyways, I wanted to paint it because it just didn't look good in the original black that I put it in. So that's like the next thing that needs to go in here before I can get the engine back in. But yeah, we're looking really good, guys. I went ahead and also, let me come over here real quick. So I got a couple things done on this engine. The first one being our oil filter, if you can see right there. It has a sandwich plate. This is the OEM oil cooler kit that came on automatic transmission turbo cars, as you can see. So these, I believe, are -8 AN fittings, so I can go ahead and just use some soft line from these up to a cooler. So I'm excited for that. I need to go ahead and pick one out still. Haven't done that yet. So that's a little sad. And then I also got this as a Titan alternator. It's a brand new, that might be a part number right there, I can't tell. I'll go ahead and put on the screen what year I got. I think it was a 2010 Titan. This should be a 150 amp alternator, so I'm really excited for it. It does use a ribbed belt, but our new harmonic balancer, I don't know if you guys can see that, is a ribbed belt as well. So that should be fine to use just as is, no needing to swap pulleys. So I am really, really excited about this, guys. I don't think I'm going to do anything else this weekend because I'm kind of at a point where I need to wait for bolts, wait for paint to dry, obviously, and get a few things in order. So I think that's where this episode ends. But next week, guys, fingers crossed, we are getting this engine back in the car.
We're getting it mounted up to the transmission right there just to make sure that we can go ahead and mount the starter appropriately. And then we are just flying forward at full speed. So I hope you guys enjoy this as much as I do. Just the past few episodes I've been so excited about, just because of how much progress we've been making and how good this thing is looking. It looks so good right now. So as always, guys, if you have any questions or comments, drop them down below. I'm going to try to build a spec list here eventually and then put it on my website. So you guys can go ahead and figure out what I did and replicate it yourselves if you are interested in that. But yeah, so I hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you guys next week when we go ahead and make some really big progress on this build.